We start the third recap class with Roland shadowing the next weapon that we added to our training. This new weapon also opened up another new area of study for us. What's the name of this new weapon that we added? And what new area of investigation did this weapon open up? The additional new weapon that we added was called the Garamono, do you remember? And the area of investigation that this particular weapon opened up was that of street trapping. Now in this second shot we see Roland add one more new movement in the shadow. Can you see what it is? It's called the Kankutoro. As you will understand by now, it's also important that we get to grips with the new terminology that is so unique to KFM. KFM has created its very own language, which has been the consequence of its own unique journey in development. And as with all the other arts, this language gives KFM its very own identity. The Garamono is a seemingly easy thing to do, but many times the things that may appear to be simple or obvious aren't. And we need to study and train them with persistence if they are to become instinctive. We mentioned one key thing regarding the application of the Garamono. Can you remember what that was? We talked about protecting the thumb so it doesn't get wrenched so easily in application. Plus look how the boys continue to attack Greg with the 6 punches, which forces Greg to respond and attack from different angles, thus developing better application abilities. In this exercise we developed provocation and connecting skills. The development process is systematic. We always follow the same formula. This way the brain starts developing the ability to solve problems by itself, without always needing to be told what and how to do everything. Genuine self-development is one of the great strengths of KFM, due to a strong methodology and a structured development process. It's just like music. When you understand the structure correctly, you're able to write or create your own music, or even write a symphony. But if you don't have a genuine understanding of the structure, then you're probably not going to be writing many classics. Punch and pence attack is a direct attack and enter mentality. And again, this mentality is extremely important as far as street application is concerned. The timing used is the first of the 3 majors. What are the 3 majors? Before, during and after. Spanish bullfighting has a deep-rooted history, and the pence attack is one of those movements that has been greatly inspired by this incredible animal. The pence attack is a radical smash and enter weapon that holds no interest in the opponent. It has but one objective: destroy anything it touches. Attacking the head is one of those instinctive actions that the human makes as a consequence of fear or a physically stressed situation. Can you also remember how the Garamono and the Kankutoro also introduced us to yet another new concept? We spoke about this in brief before, but never really opened the subject properly. Can you remember what the subject was? The subject was that of the human shield. It is a vast area of study, and for that reason we haven't opened the subject fully as yet, but it is an area that becomes totally relevant even in its very basic form when we are training with multiple opponents, and therefore one that we must acknowledge even if it's not the right time to open and exploit the subject fully. We can see in the climbing progression how Greg receives, traps, manipulates or redirects and then attacks again with the knee. The manipulation or redirection needs to be investigated and understood clearly, but little by little is the way, as it is impossible for us to train and understand everything in the beginning. If the white grade is trained correctly, a very high level of ability can be achieved in a very short space of time. But as we have said on several occasions, it is imperative that the process is followed correctly and supported by a good training regime, otherwise we will never exploit our full potential. You should have felt across the past weeks how this particular exercise has evolved and developed a simple yet very solid foundation. And again, let's not forget, this is only the white grade. We haven't even got going yet, and it just keeps on getting better. But if we want the ability, then we need to put the time in. Nothing is for free, especially when it comes to anything worth having. Another thing to keep in mind whilst training this work is that it is a complete reflection and consequence of real life. Yes, this work is very basic, but we need to start somewhere. And although it's basic, it will give fantastic attributes and understanding of the raw basics. This is something that each and every one of us needs to go through if we want to achieve the level of competence that we all desire. The basic front kick is probably one of the easier developments in the white grade, and I don't think there is too much to say about it at this stage of the training, except that it is used as a simple connector, and we will get to see some of the more radical developments a little later in the programme. The kick itself is kind of obvious, but what's one of the concepts we can apply to this weapon that we have talked about already? Provocation, or knocking on the door as it's known in KFM. Clearly we want to do damage with the kick, but it's also a fantastic provoker, and it plays with the distance and a conditioned mindset. Because this is only the white grade, we need a little direction in the beginning. Although across the following months, you will develop the ability to play with the emotional reasoning behind the physical application. What do we mean by playing with the emotional reasoning? Quite simply, it means what emotions are we playing with to either instigate or initiate an attack. Having the ability to play with emotions under stress shows a sign of great mental control. This kind of ability is something that we all want to possess. The last development exercise in this recap class shows Greg combining the different applications of the basic work. This is a prime example of playing with the emotion. We don't change the exercise just because all of the reasons are application driven. It is the application where many people get lost. They play with the drills just because, but have no real reason as to why. This leads to confusion, which in turn leads to delusion and a distorted perspective of reality, the result of which is fantasy martial arts. By learning to walk before we can run stops us from falling unnecessarily or making silly mistakes that are completely avoidable if the mind has a balance on the objective. Everybody in KFM goes through dramatic physical and mental changes once they start to shadow on a daily basis. It is your expression of you, the mirror in which you see the reflection of your true self. No illusions, just your mind expressing its emotional state.